The ones that hurt the most are the ones that happen silently and from people that I thought were friends. And it's hard because especially now, again, like I don't want to turn this into like a sympathy case, but I want to hear people, or I want to explain to people like how this happens, because I think we all do it to other people and it happens to us. So typically now the most disliked thing that I'll say would have something to do with my faith. Now, for anybody that follows me on social media at all, you will always see that I'm either talking about my own personal experience, or I'm encouraging other people of a similar belief to act, but behave, believe in a certain way. Never, I don't know the last time, other than maybe my own podcast, have I ever called somebody to believe what I believe about my faith. So I'm not projecting on anybody, this is what you have to do, this is how you have to live. So I'm really
Welcome to the Rockstars Rocking podcast, powered by Voluntary Disruption, a show dedicated to people who are crushing their business and life goals. These are bite-sized conversations with leading rock stars in their respective industry who are pumped to share their story to help drive you to the next level. So, are you ready to rock? Speaking of rock stars, here's your host, Eric Silverman.
Hey, rock stars, welcome back to another episode of Rockstars Rocking, where you know it. We say it each and every week. I always and only have the finest, the most exceptional, the best rock stars rocking it out in their daily personal business lives and everything in between. And guess what? This week is no different. I am super pumped and super excited to have a two-time Rockstars Rocking podcast guest back to the show. We've only done that a couple times in the history of the show. Check it out. Episode 24 back in 2021 was my good friend Ryan Miller. And I'm excited to see what Ryan has going on and get a big update. It's been a few years, Ryan. What's up, brother?
What's up, buddy? It has been a long time. I can't even fathom what 2021 was anymore.
Well, we talked a lot about the C-19 stuff, and I don't want to get into that at all today. Enough of that nonsense. For those that don't know Ryan, do not hang up, do not stop listening, do not go listen to episode number 24. Do that later, of course. Ryan is a speaker, a coach, an author of a brand new bestseller, Wounds. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll see me holding it up on the screen. We're going to talk a lot about this book today. It's incredible. He is also a lot longer than me, I tell you what, a podcast host of Authentic Conversations with Ryan Miller, available anywhere podcasts are consumed. Go ahead and check it out on YouTube as well and subscribe while you're there. We're going to get into that and much more on today's episode. Ryan, I wanted to start by really digging into something that is really near and dear to me, and that is the whole your whole aura. And what I mean by that is your messaging is always so deep and connected to you as a person and you as a man. And what I really respect about it is you don't give a crap, meaning in the best way possible. You know that sometimes when you say something that's on your mind, whether it's about life or business, whether it's about religion or politics, whatever it is in between, or even family, you know that you run the risk of offending or potentially alienating a certain segment of the population that may be interested in you or hiring you or working with you, that may get offended and unfollow or unfriend you or unsubscribe. That is so refreshing, and I'll be the first to admit I don't do that. I literally am Switzerland. I'm very neutral when it comes to the way that I talk about my life and my business and such. So can you dig into that and why it's so powerful and meaningful to you to, quote unquote, as you say, be authentic when it comes to all that?
Yeah. So I've shared in various places over the years that I spent the first 28 years of my life trying to be somebody else. And finally coming to the realization just through a lot of different life events that that was not the best way to live my life. I decided that it was time to start living the life that I was called to live. And so part of that then meant being me, being authentic. I will say that when I first came to that realization, again, at 28 years old, 29, 30, even really through most of my 30s, I did really have like a give no F's type of mentality. It was, I'm going to say what I want. If you're offended, oh, well, I don't care. I will say today, and some people don't completely understand this until they get to know me. I actually really care. I deeply care about how people think of me. I'm not trying to impress people, but I am trying to be respectful, kind, and considerate, and especially around things like politics, religion. They're very volatile subjects. But I believe that if we can't have discourse over those things, we will never seek to understand other people, as Stephen Covey says. And so I want to put myself out there. I want to be open and honest about what I think and believe, but again, I want to be respectful. But the other side of that is in this day and age that we live in, there are certain things, and I don't want to get into the specifics of it, but like there are certain things that like people have a license to say whatever they want to, and there's other things that nobody can talk about. And I feel like if I'm willing to put myself out there and just again respectfully speak my mind, that it will give other people the opportunity to do the same thing, to feel like they're not alone in how they think or believe or behave. And so that's what a lot of it has become now is it's less about I want you to hear my opinion on X, Y, or Z, and more about I want you to know that your opinion is valid and your opinion is welcome too. It may not be right. Like there's a lot of things I say that aren't right, but they're my opinion. And so I want to champion this idea of public discourse to the best of my ability. And so I try to do that well. Obviously, it doesn't always land well. As you said, I've lost a lot of opportunities, particularly financial ones in the last couple of years, directly as the result of particularly sharing my faith. And that sucks. Like it really, really hurts. And I'm not happy about that. And I'm not like, well, screw those people. It's like, no, actually, that really, really hurts. And I wish I could do something different. But at the end of the day, it is what it is.
I I know that it deeply affects you because we've talked offline and we're close friends. And I'm glad to hear you say that. I wanted to talk about it and open up today's conversation about it because it further leads me to how you handle it. I'd like for you to expound upon that because when you do post a video or a message or a picture or even a podcast for sure about certain various topics and components of what's happening in the world and in your life, you shared before that you get some hateful comments and you get some unfollows and unsubscribes and unfriends and such. And I can't even imagine what that's like, particularly when you learn at some point who or whom they may be, particularly people that you were close with or considered friendly in some capacity. You know, I look at it, and I'm pretty sarcastic for those that don't know me. And I know it was poor timing right after the Ravens lost in the championship game that they were trying to get to the Super Bowl a few weeks ago. We're recording here now at the end of February, and I'm not a football fan. Those that know, I really don't care. I'm on a big, massive group chat with a bunch of friends who are Oriole fans. So coincidentally, of course, or not so coincidentally, they're big Ravens fans. So I made some interesting comments at the second they lost, like literally the second. And I put hashtag too soon. And I had some interesting choice words. Most people knew I was joking. They didn't appreciate it. And one of my friends I've known for 20 something years from college, he not only left the group, he not only unfriended me on Facebook and Instagram, but and I let it go for a few weeks. I texted him the other day, congratulations on something I saw his wife post about him and his business, and total crickets, total nothing. It's been days.
Wow.
Like, and so think about this, guys. Anybody listening, this is on a bad joke about a sport about, and I can make fun of my Orioles all day long. Imagine what Ryan's going through when he's not making fun of anything. He's just telling the world about his opinion and such when it comes to actual things that matter as opposed to a football game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, you begin to explain it well in the sense that there's different, I think, stages or degrees to which this stuff happens. So I have, between myself, even people have targeted my wife and my kids sometimes, like because of having public profiles, particularly on Instagram, where people seem to be the most just horrific. I've had some awful things said about me. I mean, things that you should just never say about anybody ever. So to those things, they actually do hurt for a second, but then I just shake them off as it is what it is. They don't know me. I can't make people happy. It happens to me on YouTube actually quite a bit now too. Um, the ones that hurt the most are the ones that happen silently and from people that I thought were friends. And it's hard because especially now, again, like I don't want to turn this into like a sympathy case, but I want to hear people, or I want to explain to people like how this happens, because I think we all do it to other people and it happens to us. So typically now the most disliked thing that I'll say would have something to do with my faith. Now, for anybody that follows me on social media at all, you will always see that I'm either talking about my own personal experience, or I'm encouraging other people of a similar belief to act, but behave, believe in a certain way. Never, I don't know the last time, other than maybe my own podcast, have I ever called somebody to believe what I believe about my faith. So I'm not projecting on anybody, this is what you have to do, this is how you have to live. So I'm really careful. And yet, just because of what I say, it leads people to assume that I am hateful, that I'm exclusionary, that like whatever. And it's wild because the people that know me know that, of course, like if you do something that I disagree with, I'm gonna say it because we're friends, but we could still be friends, right? We just agree to disagree. And so over the years, there's been a couple of times, and one that's like still kind of present, where I've been excluded from almost an entire professional circle because of what I say. And again, if I was like, you people are this, you're awful, I don't do any of that. And so that has actually, when you ask like how you have handled it, it's really hard. And I've gotten to the place where I used to reach out to people, and sometimes I still will and be like, hey, what's going on here? Like, are we good? Or, what happened? But um, I think that I'm kind of like coming to the place of like, I want to love those people. I want to be friendly with as many people as possible. But at the end of the day, not in a way that discounts them, but I can't win everybody. Like, I can't make people like me. And if who I am, right? Because this is not, there are certain things that I don't want to expand this too far, but like there's certain things that, we would have opinion over. And it's like, this is what I think, or like, to me personally, this is who I am. It's not what I believe. It's not like when I'm talking about my faith, like this is a part of who I am. And so if you're going to reject what I say about who I am, then I don't know how we can exist in the same, you know, friendly circle, because you're rejecting me. And so I've tried to walk through that a little bit more. But again, like, I mean, I got a deal pending right now. And one of the first things out of the person's mouth, had to do with my faith. I'm
Mm.
actually scared that I'm not going to get this deal because of that. Like, really. And I talked to my wife about it, and she's like, babe, it's okay. If you don't get it, then that's just a person that, you don't want to, do business with. And I said, I understand that, but I still want the business and I can exist in that relationship fine. So it's really, really hard. And I feel for a lot of people, Eric, that are experiencing stuff like this in their own professional or personal circles, and they don't know where to go with it. Again, like you start to feel like, gosh, like I'm out here on an island all by myself, and I don't know what to do, and nobody else is around. And that leads to like people starting to think very poorly of themselves and starting to change who they are because they want to be accepted. Like there's just so many things that happen when we get into that mess.
So you touched on a couple of things I want to back up on. One, I don't know about you, I'm speaking for myself. When I entered the world of sales and marketing and prospecting and business development in the employee benefits world, is the only thing I've ever sold. Um, I was taught very young. I mean, I started when I was 19 as an intern with a Fortune 500 carrier, and the sales training I got from everybody was always to the effect of, and a lot of people listening probably heard this before, when you're in sales, you need to be a chameleon. You need to literally be and act and do what your prospect, target, sales, client, whatever they're doing. So, to the extent where I was taught, if they lean in, you lean in. If they pick up the pen, you pick up a pen. If they take a drink of coffee, you take a drink of coffee. Let alone, I was taught, and again, I'm talking about, I'm old, right? I'm talking about the early 2000s where politics has always been divisive, but if I was ever, not like it is today, in my opinion, and social media has played a role in my opinion too, but back in that day, if I'm having a meeting with a prospect or a client in the year 2005, and somebody starts ranting and raving about how much they love or hate the blue party or the red party, I'm telling you right now, I can tell you, I would agree with them. No matter what they said, didn't matter what I believe, because that was what I was taught. It was innate. I would literally say, oh yeah, he sucks. Oh yeah, I can't believe that. And if it was total polar opposite of what I believed, or even if I didn't know what they were talking about, I
Yep.
would agree with
Yep.
them. And there's a lot of people that were taught that way, and it still gets taught that way. You are a coach, you're a performance coach, you're a sales coach, you're a speaker, a leader, and you've been my coach for years. You still are. But I'm curious, how do you help people push past that in some capacity if that's a concern of theirs? If somebody listening was brought up like me, and I still have that sense, that mentality to this day, I'm not as overt with it, but I said earlier, I'm not as authentic as probably I should be.
Well, I want to qualify that last sentence first and say, you didn't invite this in, which is why I'll say this. You have an incredible way um, about really being yourself, and at the same time, just entering into the environment that you're in and making everybody feel comfortable. And you can say all you want, and maybe part of it's true. That's fine. I mean, you know you better than I know you, but like, you can say that you're trying to avoid certain things for the sake of avoiding them, but I think that that's just your personality, and I think that's what makes you really dynamic in your ability to be able to build relationships and to be successful. So that's you, right? And so I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, are you avoiding things that you should talk about sometimes? Maybe, I don't know, but I don't think that it hurts you at all. Um, so I think that's first. And I want to say that because, again, some people maybe don't know you like that. And I think that that's an important part. I think you just, when there's a group of people and you enter into that group, you just bring people together. So I think that that's just an incredible trait. And I think that's led to a lot of sales success.
Well, I appreciate that. I do. I do.
Back,
But I am
back,
curious. What if I'm coming to you
yeah.
as a coach and I'm like, I'm struggling because half my clients believe in stuff I don't believe in, but I need the
Yeah.
money and I need their revenue. What do you do?
Yeah. So then I would say, so let's like do a quick backup to where you started, because I agree. So I got started in sales in 1999, and it was very different. And what I mean by that was sales tactic, in my opinion, involved trying to convince people to buy things that we wanted them to buy. So there was this sense, even when it was being done with a good heart, there was this sense of almost like manipulation,
Mhm.
right? I'm gonna convince you. Like, it was the ice to the Eskimo thing, which I hate when people say. And so then because of that, then it was the pick up the pen, lean in, lean out, laugh, laugh. Oh, you like, I see that football helmet on your, desk there. Oh, I like football too. What I think has happened, and I don't really know when this shift really started to go crazy, but I would say probably 2015, 2016, when the idea of personal brand finally started to catch the mass. And what happened was, again, my perspective was we started to see this shift where the product or the service was the unique value proposition, and the shift was the person selling the product or service became the unique value proposition. And that was how we stood out. That was how we became unique. once we started to see that shift, we started to realize, and I think you'll agree with this, like today, if you have your choice, you will always do business with like-minded people. Not because you don't like other people, not because you don't want their money, not because you can't help them, but because, again, all the way back to 1999, my favorite clients would have been clients that I would have shared common thoughts, beliefs, likes, dislikes with. I would have never said that, but that's what it was. And so today, I just feel like there's enough business in every industry, reasonably speaking, to go around. And so, why not focus on doing business with people that most closely align with who you are? With the caveat, here's the caveat. So, I'm speaking a lot about like my faith, and that's an important thing to me. And I just had somebody enroll to become a one-to-one coaching client with me who 100% outspokenly disagrees with my faith. And yet we have had a dynamic and good relationship for quite a few years. When he finally came to me and said, "Hey, I need some help," I resonated with everything that he was sharing in terms of his need. He has observed me being so public about all of my faith and all of my ideas that, again, he disagrees with a lot of them, even though he's very charitable in how he handles it most of the time. And yet he agreed to move forward anyway. So I didn't compromise my values, and he didn't either. And I didn't take him on as a client simply because I wanted a client or needed the money. It was, we were able to respectfully, we didn't even have to state it. Like there was never a time when it was like, hey, this is going to be off limits. Hey, it was like, we just both are grown up enough to know that we can support each other. I can support him in his journey. He can support me by, becoming a client. We can support each other moving forward, knowing that that's there. And even if that becomes a point of discussion at some time, we can respectfully handle it with one another. So I think that's the thing that more salespeople need to realize is like, go after the people that you're best suited to serve, that you can help the most, that you're going to align with the best, that you're going to have the best personal relationship, professional relationship with. Absolutely. And I would say the one line I would draw in the sand is never compromise your values to do business. And not even because it's a compromise of values, but because every single time I've ever done it or I've ever had a client do it, they always regret it because those become some of the most problematic clients that you continue to have to compromise and struggle with.
The backing up to what you said a few minutes ago about I don't think you use the word, but I sometimes use the word, as many do, an avatar client or somebody who would be ideal, somebody that you align with philosophically. It could be on every scale of emotion. Um, and I don't know, it was a number of years ago, probably 2017, 18. I was at a conference and I heard somebody by the name of Steve Napolitan speak. And Steve Napolitan, he's out of Northern California. He actually speaks heavily. It's the first time I ever heard this term about wow clients versus ow clients.
Mm.
Ow, like ouch, like I don't want to take their call. I always say ignore. I don't want to respond to their email. So wow versus ow. And our good friend Chris Wolpert speaks about that to this very day more than I ever do. And I love the philosophy of Steve's, but Chris is very big on that. And I can honestly say when I was new in the business, new in sales, new in entrepreneurship, like most of us, and I can't speak for you, but most people, they take on any client. I don't care if they're wow or ow or anywhere in between. They could be the worst client ever. You want revenue. You need to build your business. You need to feed your family. You do what you got to do to survive. And I have, I am proud of myself in that as a business, as an entrepreneur, as a person, I've gotten so much better over the last decade at taking on clients that are wow clients and not ow clients. And frankly, I've had wow clients turn to ow clients, and I've had to fire them for lack
Yeah.
of a better term. And I feel like I've gotten better at realizing that you want to get rid of those folks as quick as possible, as soon as you notice it, as soon as you happen to see it. And too often, and you've seen it with your coaching, I'm sure, with sales professionals in life, that too often people just, and I've done this, you just hope that it gets better, and it doesn't.
Yeah,
It never gets better, in my opinion.
dude.
So I love when you talk about that, and I am curious before, and we're gonna dig a lot into your book here in just a minute, but I'm curious your thoughts on it. And the only other thing I wanted to add, that I would like for you to add to it, is um, what do you think about, and regardless of industry, but what do you think about people who go out of their way on social media, namely in this case LinkedIn, but it could be anything, um, to throw specific people and companies and solutions under the bus when they have a bad experience, or when they're over the top talking about something terrible happening within the industry? And again, we happen to be surrounded by the benefits world, but I think the question globally applies to any industry, because it happens all the time.
Yeah, man, that is like so money. So let's speak specifically to the industry that's going to listen to this the most,
Sure.
which is the employee benefits space.
I only say that often in this on my podcast because I like people to remember it's not just our industry
Yes,
that we're going to talk
but
about apply to every industry. We just don't know it because we're not in those industries.
yeah, well, so but okay, I'm actually going to give an analogy here because I think actually then you just made this even better. So when we think about, so we're going to address the benefits industry, but for a second, I want to address parents. Parents, if you are constantly talking bad about a political opponent, which happens a lot in households, you are going to raise children that, first of all, are quick to badmouth opponents in any belief or decision making process, which is not a good thing to do, right? Like, we have to catch ourselves all the time as adults. Worse off, you are going to give your children, you're going to set your children up for failure because they are not going to understand how to think for themselves politically, and they are just going to demonize the quote unquote enemy because they sit on the other side of the aisle. So I think that's like a personal application that comes into play right away. When it comes to the industry, this industry, the employee benefits industry, is notorious for destroying and pointing fingers at everybody that is the problem. The carriers, the providers, pharma, the government, whatever. And you know what? They all deserve to have a finger pointed at them. But I think two things are missed here. Number one is the first one. I saw somebody say this the other day. The first thing we need to do is stick up the thumb and point it at the person that's a part of the problem too. And we're all some contributing part of the problem. So I think that's missed. But the worst part, and this relates to your clients, as much as you will speak about the brokenness of the industry and everybody else is the problem, and you're telling your clients like they're all a mess, we need to fix this process, what you are doing is you are creating a negative brand for yourself. And so if I'm a client, I've got to think about like, do I really want, like, yes, this person's a disruptor, yes, this person's going to make big changes, but do I really want to work with somebody that is constantly ranting and raving all the time? I mean, my answer for myself is no. I want people that are positive and encouraging and supportive. So yes, point out the problems, but be careful to not rant too hard. And I think that's a lot of what happens in this industry is we all get on the rant train. We all, look for opportunities to just fire each other up. And it's like, okay, cool. But you have business owners, CFOs, HR leaders that are looking at you from the outside and they're making judgments. Do you want that judgment to be, gosh, that's an angry person, or that's a person that's actually trying to make a positive difference in the world?
I agree, and I see it so much. In fact, I was a victim of it, meaning I'm not a victim. I was a victim of falling for it and getting into that environment. So back, I'd say even before the pandemic, and certainly during and after. That's my only mention of it. I fell into it, and I would literally hop on my selfie video or whatever, and I'd record and I'd put myself out there, and I'd rant and rage about my side of the industry. I have a unique side to the industry and how I operate. And I didn't like myself after I did it, to be very
Mhm.
blunt. I did have, just like you have with Instagram, I had some folks that I do look up to and respect that are in my industry that called me out and tried to argue that I was also part of the problem. And I totally
Mm.
take ownership of it. And it kind of over time weighed on me. And I was like, I don't need to do this. It's not me.
Yeah.
It's not who I am. And I completely silenced it and stopped. Not silenced it to the point where I don't want to talk about it, but I silenced it to the point where I don't need to be the target, or excuse me, I don't need to be the focal point of it. I don't need to be out there on video, let alone in words. So I feel like there's a better way to help lift everybody up, in my humble opinion.
Well,
Let,
and real quick to that, like, because I think it's so important. Like, again, this is back to what I mentioned about you and being able to bring people together. Like, do you want to be known as somebody that unifies and somebody that encourages and brings hope to a conversation or situation, or do you want to be known as somebody that tears down, that divides, that destroys? And again, for a short period of time, for you, when you gave that example, you were part of the, like, let's tear it down. But now looking back, you're like, man, that's not who I want to be. And so think about, in hindsight, people that have observed you. Like, I know this to be true. When I first made my turn, like in my early 30s, I was on a warpath to correct everybody for all the wrong that they were doing in this world. And it was from a good place, but I was wrecking people and relationships. Like, it's easy for me to point people out that are being idiots, that do stupid things. And we can do that, right? Like, you and I, we have a great relationship. And so we can fling back text messages or Instagram reels, and we can pop off and make fun and do funny things all we want. But it's like, but we have to carry ourselves, again, not disingenuously. We should be the same person behind the scenes as we are in front. But we have to do so publicly in such a way that allows people to see what we're really after, which is, we're after change. We're after growth. We're trying to better ourselves. We're trying to better other people, whether that's through a product or service or through a one-to-one relationship. That's what we want, what we should want to be known as. Like, I love the Gandhi quote that says, be the change that you want to see in the world. And as we look out in the world today, no matter where you're at, I don't care who you are, you look out, even just the United States, and you're like, it is broken. Like, culture is broken, government is broken, healthcare is broken, crap, schools are broke, like everything, like, broken. Be the change. And the change, yes, we need to point out injustice and we need to point out wrong, but change is not destroying more people. Change is figuring out how to lift people up and build people up. And that's something that I think is worth fighting for. And it looks different than fighting to just be the a-hole that's calling people out because you don't like them.
well said. Well said. Um, I got to get into wounds, man. I love this book. For those that haven't seen it yet, again, I'm holding it up if you're watching on YouTube. Most folks are probably not, and that's fair. So if you're listening in the car, please make a mental note, go to Amazon and get yourself the Wounds book by Ryan Miller. The subtitle is How Hurt, Heartache, and Tragedy Become the Keys to Unlocking Greatness. I want to ask you some questions about the book. I want to dig in, but globally, overall, why a book? You've had all your years of success in business. You're growing. You're a family man. Was it a bucket list? Was it something you thought about, never did? Just big picture. Why a book? And then we can dig into why this book.
Yeah. Gosh. Why? That's such a why did I do this to myself? So I think there was always just kind of this thought in the back of my mind. People said, write a book, it's a business card. I was like, okay, that's a cool idea. I probably got some things to say. So that was kind of just an underlying thing forever. But after Route 91, October 2017, shortly thereafter, people kept coming to me and saying, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. You need to write a book. And I'm like, look, I'm not writing a book to tell that story. Like, I'm not going to find any kind of success on the back of my friend that was killed, the other 57 people that were killed that night, and the thousands and thousands of people that have had their lives changed forever. Like, I'm just not going to do it.
And Ryan, pause. Take 30 seconds, and there are people who may not remember or know what Route 91 was. I don't want to make it about that, but 30 seconds on that so they can Google it and understand where this is coming from.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the don't remember it is probably actually the worst part. So
Agreed.
October 1st, 2017, the largest mass shooting that has ever and hopefully will ever happen in the United States was at the Route 91 concert in Las Vegas. My wife and I and five of our friends were in the crowd that weekend, but that night when it happened, and one of our friends, Nicole Kimura, was one of the 58 that was killed. And so obviously, just a devastating, moment in time, not just for me, for my wife, for my friends, but for 22,000 people. And I don't want to get into all this, but it is really sad that, again, I think because of the society we live in today, it's like the 5-year anniversary would have been a big one in 2022. It wasn't even mentioned on the news. Like, it's just like we're just so on to the next tragedy or newsworthy event that, I mean, those are people. Like, I don't care to be remembered. Like, I'm here and thank God, but 58 people died. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just, it's awful. Anyway, so that was a massive awakening for me in so many ways, and I was being interviewed by People Magazine and Anderson Cooper's team at CNN, and like all these just weird experiences, the news, and um, anyway, so I was telling the story so much, and people were like, you need to write that story in a book, and I'm like, no way, it's not going to happen. So I just let it go, and then just before the pandemic started, I decided to give writing a shot. But I was just going to use that story as a catalyst. And then I was going to share and write whatever 7 steps to being a successful person, based upon my coaching philosophy, the same stupid thing that everybody else writes. There I go, talking bad about other people. But so I started writing that, and I got about 15,000 words in, and I just hit a wall because I wasn't a writer. I didn't have function or form. So I stopped. Well, then 2021, end of 21, going into 2022, I engaged with a publisher that also had a writing program and a coaching program behind it. So I flew to Austin in April of 2022, and I engaged their help to help me write the 7 ways to whatever it was. I got 5 chapters through that book, and I hit a wall, and I couldn't write anymore. And I mean, I was on a train, dude. Like, I had written out great chapters, really powerful, practical information around, just my approach to life and business and whatever. And I hit this wall and I couldn't write. And after about a week, I called my coach and I said, I don't know what to do. I said, I can't write anymore. And I feel like this is pointless. And he said something. Oh, this was a woman this coach, and she said, then what do you want to do about it? And I said, I don't want to write this book anymore. I want to write something else. And she said, well, what do you want to write? And I said, well, the only thing that people really care about when I talk to them is my story, like who I am, what I'm all about, where I've come from. Because as much as like coming from Orange County, California has protected me from a lot, I've still lived a lot of life in what's now been 40, almost 45 years. I said, I think I want to write a memoir. And she said, are you sure? And I said, yep. And she said, all right, let's do it and see what happens. And so again, Route 91 was the catalyst, but now really to address the question why was I started to recognize that all of this hurt, mostly that I had done to myself and other people, but some that others had done to me, there was purpose and meaning behind it. And even more importantly, so far in my life, God's wired me in such a way that I get to be fairly outspoken and I'm public about my life and my faith and whatever. I'm like, if I can use whatever small platform I've been given to help other people go back into these areas that they don't want to address, that they don't want to talk about, that they don't want to deal with, and I can give them permission, that I can just open up that door, kind of crack it a little bit for them. That's what I want to do, because my story is insignificant. I'm just one guy from Southern California. Like, there's nothing special about me as it relates to kind of the global mass, but it was just that opportunity. And so the more I started writing, like, it was brutal to go back and unearth so much of that stuff, like all of the struggles in my marriage, that I knew my kids were now going to read and print, though they knew most of. Like, that was really, really hard to do. But dude, every word that I wrote, because I wrote 99% of that book myself, and then just an editor polished it. And it all meant something to me, whereas the other books were just like, I'm just getting a book done. This one has meant something to me. And so, yeah, I'm so proud of it. It was brutally hard to do. I experienced wounds writing the book. My publisher went bankrupt in the process and took me for about $30,000 6 weeks before my original publish date. But through all of that, we published in September of 23, and I've gotten some really cool feedback, which has been pretty awesome.
So, I want to dig in on a couple quick questions as we start to wrap up, but hopefully still have a few more minutes. And those listening, don't hang up, because it's about to get really good, more than it has already. See that catch right there? That's pretty good. The I want to talk about, or I want you to talk about how past hurt, which typically and often leads to self-limiting beliefs, really becomes one of the biggest contributors to a lack of professional success for most people. So why do you think the message that you convey in the book, and really it's beyond the book, it's what you talk about on stage as well in your keynote speaking career. Why do you think the message is so necessary for people to hear, especially for entrepreneurs, business owners, and sales professionals?
Yeah, so there's a couple of big reasons, but it really starts with, as I was retracing, so I've been a coach for, this will be my 13th year. And what I was recognizing as a pattern in most of the higher performing people that I was working with was they were their own worst enemy. They were the ones that were getting in their way. It wasn't the tools, it wasn't the strategy, it wasn't the process, it was them. Like they knew that and they needed help getting out of their own way. And so then it became, okay, well, what is it about that that's getting in their own way? Well, as crazy as it seemed to be events from their past that were hindering their ability to be all that they desired to be and were called to be in the present. And so you think of something, I try to use like the most trivial example, so that way I don't just like blow one up. But you think about something as simple as like, there was a person, maybe a lot of us, that when we were 7, we were on the playground at school, and the boy we liked, the girl we liked, we told them, or maybe they found out and they looked at us and told us that we were ugly. And that sounds so trivial and so silly. But there are many people that 20, 30, 40, 50 years later can't forget that. And so now today, when you say, hey, video on social media, on LinkedIn, is an incredible way for you to share your personal brand. And the only, like, they'll say, oh, I don't know that that's for me. Like, I'm just not sure that, that's the best way. And it's not necessarily for everybody. But the underlying issue is they're scared because they don't want to be told, because they know how awful social media is. They don't want to be judged. And what's worse is some people, because we were never taught to deal with the hurt that happened at 7, we were told to just get up, dust yourself off, and get after it again. We never healed. We never grew. And so we don't even know that somebody calling us ugly at 7 years old is the reason why I can't get on social media today. But we know in our head that there's some fear, there's some question. Or, I mean, think about it, Eric. You've been in sales so long. You can't even count the number of times you've been rejected. Forget the deals you thought you were going to get that you didn't get. How about the tens of thousands of people that told you to stop calling them, that never picked up the rejection? And so on one hand, in sales, business ownership, we glorify that. It's like, oh, we got to deal with rejection. But do you really know how to deal with it? Because for some of us, and I know we've talked about this personally, like I remember being rejected for a variety of things in my life, including like when my parents divorced when I was 6, I didn't get it, but that was my dad walking away from me. Like I didn't do anything to deserve that, but that's carried with me. And so now when I'm trying to coach somebody or even myself, dude, pick up the phone, make another cold call, reach out. The looming thought in the back of somebody's mind is, do I have to keep being rejected? When will I ever finally be enough to win? And so it's all of these self-limiting beliefs, and oftentimes they're not even imposed by us, that are preventing people from being successful. So again, like what I was saying earlier, it's like people hire a coach or they watch a video because they want to learn a new framework, a new process, a new strategy, a new tool. And I'm like, dude, great. But that's not what's holding you back. And so, just as like a practical example, like something that we made a big shift in this year in my own business is we started giving away all of our tools. If you need a sales tool on prospecting, I got it. If you need a tool on LinkedIn, you can have it. If you need a tool on referral generation, take it. I don't want to make money on tools anymore because I think they're too easily accessible. You can find them everywhere. What people need is to figure out how to, in the best ways possible, get out of their own way. And so my book, my story, my process has really all led to helping people to see, like, if you want the life that you dream of, whatever that is, a better husband, a better father, a better mother, a better wife, a better business leader, a better salesperson, a better janitor, you've got to figure out how to get out of your own way. And the only way you're going to do that is by understanding what got you to this place, how to overcome that, and ultimately take advantage of everything that's at your disposal. The problem is again, you don't understand that until you're able to heal from it.
Is this too hard of a question? Is this like Sophie's Choice, asking somebody to choose your favorite child? And not asking that. In your book, you have such a great book. Is there a specific chapter or target within it that is so deep to you that if anybody read the whole book, you'd want them to walk away with that chapter or that purpose as being the biggest and best part? And I've asked that question to others who write books that I've had on the show, and sometimes the
Yeah.
answer is not really, and sometimes there's dramatic, yes, you got to look at this specific part of the book.
Yeah, I would say that I don't think there's any one part. That's always the danger with me leading with the Route 91 story, is that's like, gosh, it sounds so terrible. Like, now I don't want to say it again, but it's like, that's just over glorification, right? It's like, I'm going to shock and awe you with something that was so bad. But that that's not typically it for most people. Yes, I mean, there are people that I've come across that have attempted suicide and thank God, failed. That have lost loved ones. I mean, right? Like losing your mom, and just like that was devastating to you. So we all have our own things, some that we've done, some that others have done to us. But I would just say that it's less about like the thing and more about understanding all of the things that have brought you to the place that you're in today. And like I'm trying to attract the high performer, the one that desires great success, that's achieved it, maybe at a collegiate level in a sport, maybe in business. It's you're not I'm not dealing with people that are all screwed up. It's not like their whole life is ruined and they're trying to get fixed. And yet, the most successful people in one capacity or another, life is all screwed up. And and we need to figure out a way to heal from it. So I was thinking about this actually offline. It was like, I've talked about the book a lot. I've been on podcasts a lot. It's like, what about something different? And I'm just fooling myself because it's all one and the same. Like, my encouragement to people listening would be, there is something that you desire that you have been unable to achieve, and or there's something that is hurting you, keeping you up at night, creating anxiety in your life that you want to overcome. I would challenge you to consider what it is that's at the root cause of causing those things to happen. It's not the present moment, or the chances of the present moment being the trigger are very, very, very minimal. It's something from the past. It could have been weeks ago, months ago, years ago. I would just say take that time, because once you get to a place of understanding what caused it, what it did to you, that's when you can truly start to overcome these things and achieve. And success is cool. Joy and fulfillment is far better. And so you just get all of that in the process of doing this.
Dude, you would have in a different life, you would have been an incredible therapist. My wife is a psychotherapist, private practice, and she'll be the first to admit she does it for what it helps her overcome and what it
Mm.
helps her do and how it helps her feel. There's no money in it.
Yeah.
But like anything, sadly, teachers, doctors, or well, to an extent, but teachers, firefighters, police officers, therapists, etc., mental health specialists. One thing that I got from your book that I just, we're not going to take the time to dig into today. We don't have time, but I do encourage folks when they pick up the book, again, available anywhere you can get books. Specifically, Amazon is where I would go, and you can check out his website. It'll be in the show notes. But uh, you mentioned in your book the wound analysis framework, the wound analysis
Yes.
framework, and specifically steps to deal with the wounds. Short of time, I don't want you to go through those details, but that was an impactful part for me. And I know it has been for others. So I would encourage folks that pick up the book to make sure you dig deep into that part of the book and such. And the last thing I wanted to touch on, and then we'll be done, is I know that speaking of being, as I'm joking but not joking, as you to be a therapist, May is coming up. So every year, if you're listening to this in 5 years, I promise you, May will be coming up at some point. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Talk to me about that and why that's so impactful and meaning to you each year.
Yeah, so it's actually interesting, and I'll make this really short and sweet. But when I wrote my book, I had no intention of addressing the mental health crisis. Like, it wasn't a book about mental health, and yet it's all about my mental health journey. And as I've talked to so many people, it's done the same for them. It's just, oh, again, you know, uh, benefits specifically. One thing I'll say to this industry is the majority of benefits that are being made available to employers, while great, are post-traumatic, meaning they go through the event and then they have access to EAP, programs, whatever. That's great. Don't take that away. But there are few proactive tools available. Like, how do I build resilience to prevent myself from getting into the big issue in the future? It's stuff like that. Anyway, so I've been studying that. I've been dealing with that. And so as May approaches, this is going to be the first year because my book will just be out for the first time this year, for this month. We're going to do a huge promotion. We're going to be giving away copies of the book. This is scary for me to say, it's the first time I've said this recorded. I am going to try and have the audiobook available by the time that May rolls around so we can launch it for Mental Health Awareness Month. We're going to be doing a lot of giveaways on programs and other things. I really want to champion the cause, not to jump on the mental health train, but because I feel like I have a story to tell and I can help other people in some small sliver heal from their mental health journey and again find freedom to be all that they've been created to be.
I love it. I would very much welcome the audio version. I would check it out in that format again, in that case. I don't know about others listening, but that is certainly a big deal these days. A lot of folks,
Yes.
and for me, it's probably just an excuse. I'll be the first to admit, but I like to read snippets and blurbs and quick articles and such and headlines and sadly clickbait. That's me.
Yeah.
When it comes to a book, I tend to get distracted pretty quickly. I pick it up and
Yep.
then put it down and never go back to it. So I think audiobook is certainly going to be a big deal for you. I'm excited for that. So if you haven't already started, time's ticking, my friend. Uh,
Yes.
I'm gonna hold your ASS accountable. All right. Well, listen, Ryan's not hard to reach, guys. Anybody listening, most of you probably know Ryan, and if you don't, I encourage you to connect with him and follow him on LinkedIn right away. You can DM him in LinkedIn message, I'm sure, or Instagram. Just don't spam him and don't try to sell him anything. But if you want to have a genuine connection, a genuine friend, somebody that you can rely on, who will help you whether you're a paid coach or not, I'm sure you are in the right place when you talk to Ryan, because that's how I met him. So he's not hard to find. Check him out LinkedIn. Is it still, I know it was, is it still ryanjamesmiller.com?
Yeah, you can go there. You can go to woundsbook.com. All the book and resources are there too. So yeah.
Perfect, perfect. So woundsbook.com, ryanjamesmiller.com, LinkedIn, Instagram. He's got a large following as well. Look, man, you said it all. I'm so excited for you to for folks to hear what's going on now, 3 years after we had you on. For those watching on YouTube, I got my famous enough hat on, courtesy of the one, the only Ryan James Miller. I think I made a comment about how cool that hat was literally years ago at this point. And lo and behold, it shows up at my front door. And it was a toss up because my Orioles colors. He sent me a Be Authentic hat. So I didn't know which one to wear today, but I went with famous enough because I kind of got that back in my head because I've seen him wearing it recently and often. But both are my favorites. You've said it all, man. I appreciate you coming on. I just show up and ask some dopey questions, sometimes better than dopey, but still, I just ask questions and let the guest take it away. And I don't do anything else. So for everybody behind the scenes at the Rockstars Rocking podcast, I'm Eric Silverman. That is and will always be the one, the only Ryan James Miller, podcast host, best-selling author, speaker, entertainer, football star. Oh, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe you are. That's it, man. I appreciate you. And as everybody listening, I appreciate you. As I always say, don't just have a great day, make it a great day. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Rockstars Rocking podcast. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you consume podcasts. And if you feel so inclined, please leave us a review. 5 stars would totally rock. Until next time, Rockstars, keep rocking.